What's up, everybody? Whew. What a day. What's up, Mike? Mike Reed in the house? Oh, we got two people in the meeting. What's up, TJ? Eddie? What's going on, guys? Brian, Dave, what's up? Max is about to come out at 4:15. What's up, Abid, Bandit? Hello, Dimitri. Long time no see. Joanna, Francisco. What's up, Linkov? Brendan, Pam. What's up, Viva? Anastasia, hello. Good afternoon, Lath. Alright, let's do the disclosure. I'm an associate member of T3 Trading Group, which is an SEC registered broker-dealer and member of FINRA SIPC. All of my trades are placed through T3 Trading Group. You should carefully consider whether trading is suitable for you in light of your own financial condition. Position disclosure. I got out of core after hours into this up move. Everything else should be the same. Traded a lot of T-Triple-Q today. Worked out pretty well. Traded some AMD today. Worked out okay. Alright, cool. Today was a wild day. How did we close? It didn't really feel like a down day. That's because the IWM is positive, but it is a down day. Right now, SPYs are up 80 cents or whatever after the close, 90 cents after the close, and we're still down 1% in the SPYs. The Qs are definitely up after hours also. Looks like the Qs are up over $1 after hours, and they're still down 1.5%. The IWM was where that relative strength was. That IWM relative strength hit as soon as the 8:30 number hit this morning, and it stuck with us all day, even though it never really gave follow-through. The market never gave any upside follow-through. It was just the Russell was holding in when the SPYs and the Qs were kind of selling off. So it couldn't really get any legs, but what is the RSP today? RSP was still negative, so the equal weight S&P was still negative. If anyone has the breadth numbers, I'd be curious to see them. I wouldn't be surprised if the breadth numbers are like actually really good for a down 1% S&P. It seemed like there were a lot of names out there that were positive. Banks traded well, which we called for in the meeting. Josh was all over that today. The Chinese names traded really well, which we also called for in the morning meeting. A lot of growth, not all growth. It always seems like it's a little bit selective. There's a lot of growth stocks out there that seemed like they were showing really good relative strength as well during the day, which is also what we were looking for. Today was a good day. As someone who's 100% long, to have my P&L be as positive as it is today on the S&P down a percentage point, I am really happy with that, actually. And I'm also I'm really happy with how I traded, and I needed it. I needed a little confidence boost. I felt like before I went on my trip, and I'll turn on the video camera for people that are on YouTube. Before I went on my trip, I felt like I wasn't trading well. I felt like for a few weeks before that trip, maybe a month before that trip, my executions weren't as good. My intraday calls seemed like the timing was off by a little bit with some degree of consistency. My big picture calls were probably still pretty decent, but I felt like I wasn't executing them well. So I really needed to take a step back and take a little trip, which I did, and I still traded a little bit every day while I was gone. But you lose a little bit of a feel for the market. So it took me, I felt like I traded okay yesterday, and today I felt like I traded really, really well. So I'm happy to say that. You guys know I always keep it real. I have no problem and actually almost enjoy talking about when I trade poorly, because I think it can help everyone. But every once in a while, it's good to give myself a pat on the back. I just felt like I was super on point today with my calls, my intraday calls, how I traded, how I executed, how my game plans came together, and how I followed those game plans. So today was a good confidence booster day for me, and we all need those from time to time. As far as the market goes, if you're looking at this SPY chart here, even with the after hours bounce, this thing still looks abysmal. We lost 420 yesterday. We came into the morning meeting this morning with a little bit of a conundrum, and it was made even more difficult by the fact that we bounced at 8:30 when that number hit. Before the 8:30 number hit, we were like $8 extending the SPYs and about $10 extending the Qs. So I did start doing some pre-market buying in my swing names, strictly off the $10 of extension in the Qs, because it's been such a consistent thing. Whenever the market gets $10 extended to the upside or the downside, and the SPYs or the Qs from those moving averages, it's been a very consistent sign to start looking in the other direction. Even if you do get times where the market can get $12 worth of extended, which actually happened with the Qs today, or potentially, more than that, which we have seen happen occasionally over the course of the last 2 years. For the most part, that $10 worth of extension is a extremely consistent signal to start looking at the other side of the market in a couple of different ways. One way that you can do that is just to begin to build in the other direction. That's a lot of what I was doing with TQQQ. All I did with TQQQ today was create a game plan for myself, really based off the Qs. I said, all right, as soon as the Qs get to like a little bit below 346, will be $10 extended from the ADA on the daily chart, or at least where we were at that time, and I'm going to begin to start piecing in to a position, which for me that meant I was buying TQQQ every 10 cents, just kind of buying it every 10 cents, kind of working on that cash flow strategy that I've spoken to you guys about, where I buy every 10 cents, I sell some on every 10 cent up move, I kind of make the volatility back and forth, maybe hold a little bit of a smaller core position for a little bit more of a big move. And again, just doing that, sometimes you might still finish that day negative, but I actually think that the trade has had a 100% win rate for me over the course of the last 2 years at this point, which could change. But today was just one more day of that 100% win rate on that trade actually working, and it just doesn't happen that often. And your sizing has to be appropriate, because like I said, $10 of extension can become $12 of extension, $12 of extension can become $15 worth of extension, and it would be better if other indices were confirming it, which wasn't happening yet. It'd be better if it was a day 3, day 4. It's better if short-term tactical is confirming it, which it was. But today was only a day 2. The SPYs weren't quite there yet. They weren't quite at $10 worth of extension. The IWM definitely wasn't there, especially with its relative strength. So you're kind of doing it in, at least I was, a little bit of a vacuum where I'm just kind of building into these Qs. It's a little bit dangerous, especially in the middle of earnings season. Amazon's going to be reporting the next day. That $10 of extension, if it becomes $15 worth of extension, and then the SPYs are at $10, $11 worth of extension, then you might be dealing with a little bit of short-term pain on that trade. So sizing really has to be appropriate. So basically what I'm saying is, into that $10 of extension in the market, your choices are that you can begin to kind of build in small, which is what I'm doing in that TQQQ, or you can wait for a signal when you recognize where the market is to try to get heavier, which is, I thought that was a solid signal when the 7-year bond auction, which I don't think I've ever paid attention to before ever, hit and the market upticked. That was more of like the Rich N, if he's listening to today's afternoon meeting, asked a great question at one point during the day. Would you prefer to begin to build in, or would you prefer to like buy on the way up with size? And my answer was, I like the idea of doing both. If you're building in and doing what I was talking about with the TQQQ, I'm just buying a little bit every 10 cents on the way down. And I'm kind of working this strategy, and I understand, I know what my risk is, I know that I can afford it, and I recognize, like I said, I could close today negative. $10 of extension can become $15 worth of extension, but thus far, that trade's at a 100% win rate for me if I'm patient and my sizing is appropriate. Or I can look to get heavy more in one shot when I get a little bit of a signal, which is what I thought came in at 1 o'clock today. I was on the phone, but But I saw that come in. I bought very quickly, and I just typed into the VTF in all capital letters. I bought, hoping that would catch some people's eye, because I thought that was the beginning of a point here where we could begin to move higher. And it turned out to not be the low of the day. That was pretty close to it. Some trades, some names that I was in never made new lows, even though the SPYs made new lows. But for the most part, that was a really good signal where we began to bottom out. And we've also very consistently seen these afternoon sessions, not always, but with good consistency, seen these roll-ups in the afternoon session where that just becomes just a time of the day that's more positive with the zero DTE complex. So yeah, just good execution there, you know, from the perspective of studying the market. Some other good smaller trades. This AMD into extension on this 5-minute RDR, buying back through that 5-minute bar low versus this low just for the quick snapback trade was decent. NVIDIA, sorry Tom, did work really well off that 400. I didn't take it. I know it like pushed through once, gave that shakeout. Somebody asked me about shakeouts in the afternoon meeting yesterday, about how they can make it even easier for the market to move higher. Just as a trade, we don't have to marry the stock if we don't like it. But nice little $10 bounce in NVIDIA off that $400 area. So there were some really good trades out there. You just had to be patient. That was the hardest part about today, and I started talking about it just a minute ago. The hardest part about today was the degree of the bounce that we had pre-market. What we were talking about in the morning meeting today was just be patient. You know, pre-market before 8:30, we had that $10 worth of extension in the Qs. We had $8 worth of extension in the SPYs. It called for, if we could have opened there, being more aggressive. But by the time we were doing the morning meeting, by the time the market was potentially set to open, it was a much more difficult open. We didn't have that $10 worth of extension. It also was not a good risk reward to be shorting. So you had to be really patient in the beginning of the day. And I remember, you know, watching certain areas for us to break up. Like this candle was really important here at 10:25 when we broke this little bear flag to the upside. Very similar to yesterday, by the way. That heavy selling off like the 5-minute coming in. And when do we usually see 15-minute price corrections? Somewhere between 10:15 and like 10:40. Well, guess what? It happened yesterday. It was the biggest bounce of the day before totally failing. It happened again today before failing. The difference between, you know, yesterday and today is yesterday we continued to bleed out for the entirety of the day. It was a day one. Today was technically only a day two, which, by the way, was also one of the things that made it difficult to come in and buy. But it was a day two where, if you were patient, you did hit a point in like the midday trading session where the Qs, when they started getting below like 346, were reaching that area of over $10 worth of extension. And again, that's when we have a higher probability of seeing moves come in on the other side. So yeah, I mean, just really good day today. I think the banks traded well, which is something we were looking for. We recognized in the morning meeting today the relative strength in a lot of these banks yesterday, and we looked for follow-through in them today if the market could hold up. Great strength there in Bank of America. I know there was a call out in JP Morgan at one point today, so some people took those. I had a lot of conviction on the Chinese names today for the first time. I feel like the new stimulus programs that the Chinese government is implementing are potentially much more effective than what they have done up until this point. Yet the stocks are at new lows, and no one's talking about it. I think everyone has kind of left these names for dead. Everyone's just jaded, and rightly so, on how Alibaba, JD, and Baidu have been trading. PDD is obviously a little bit different, but PDD is different because of its American-based business, or for lack of a better term, the Temu, which is more focused on U.S. users and has had incredible growth because they're doing a great job selling potentially counterfeit goods. So yeah, the inside day and up, and JD worked great off the open. Alibaba, which I didn't take because I've got enough in JD, worked out really well. So yeah, again, it was just a day where I feel like everything we talked about throughout the day was super on point. The morning meeting was super on point. The call-outs during the day were super on point. Even with it potentially being a little bit of a tricky open, we had all the right things at all the right times, and the execution was great. So I hope people had a decent day. Again, for myself, it's like one of my biggest satisfactions when it happens. Almost in some ways even better than having like a really, really, really big up day P&L is like a day like today, honestly, where I'm 100% long. I'm 100% focused on the long side of the market because of where we're at. The market still closes red, and I'm able to put up, pretty good upside P&L just because of name selection and how I was able to trade things intraday. So I hope you guys had a good day as well. After hours here, Amazon's on the move. Amazon numbers, I'm so much struggling what to make out of the way some of these stocks have been trading, and I didn't even talk about Apple today, but also how some of these names have been trading on the earnings reports. This Amazon report doesn't seem great to me. I guess the conference call hasn't started yet. Like it seems fine. They missed on AWS, which is the huge one that everybody seems to be paying attention to. Obviously, they sold Amazon down into the report, so maybe that's helping things a little bit. They beat on their like online store sales, which the market usually doesn't really care about that. I think it's just interesting because it shows once again the strength of the consumer, the strength of the economy that we're in right now. But yeah, I'm actually surprised that Amazon is trading as well as it is. Obviously not to the upside of even what the measured move is. Measured move is $9.50. We closed at, let's just call it 119.50. So the measured move would take you up to 128. The after hours high, if this is real, I think it is real, is like 126.50. So we didn't even get up there. So we'll see. There's still plenty of time for this thing to do like what Ameta did yesterday, trading up when we were doing the meeting, and then it broke this wedge to the downside like violently. Even though I thought the meta report was another one that was just fine. Like the numbers were great. They weren't even great. They were fine. They were good. But the spending on the Reality Labs, in conjunction with the fact that the stock has moved from 100 to over 300, primarily on 2023 being the year of efficiency, really concerned me that they might sell Meta down. But they initially bought it up after hours because numbers were fine, just to then sell it off. And then obviously it was down all day today. Great call. I missed it. Back through this 280 as a long versus that low. I mean, obviously great call. It turned into a full-on reversal. But even just as a retracement, that was another fantastic call from the team today. Meanwhile, Apple was just like a massacre, and go figure. It just seems like they're de-risking a lot of these things now into these earnings reports. It seems like they're just looking for reasons to sell these names down. That's what we saw with Amazon. Like Amazon yesterday blew my mind. Amazon down 6%. No one had a reason, in my opinion, that made any actual sense on why Amazon sold the way that it did yesterday, and no one has any reason that I'm able to see on why Apple sold as much as it did today, except just de-risking in front of these reports. And maybe that's actually what is helping Amazon to get boosted a little bit after hours for the moment. But for the moment, Amazon's up. We'll see if that saves the market here a little bit as we go into the very end of the week. So that's all I got. Happy to take a look at what you guys have or answer any questions that you guys have. Let me sign into the YouTube on my other screen. Happy to take a look at what you guys have. Cool. First I'm seeing here is from Dave S. Any reason why you're going along the TQQQ instead of shorting the SQQQ? Yeah, no real reason, to be honest. If anything, in some ways, I usually would prefer to short the SQQQ. So that decay, at least in my brain, can be on my side. TQQQ, the decay is actually against me. I like the pricing profile of TQQQ slightly better than the pricing profile of SQQQ for the way that I was trading it. $31 ETF versus a $22 ETF. So 10 cents, which is kind of how I was trading it. I said I was buying every 10 cents. That's like a smaller percentage move than if I was shorting every 10 cents in SQQ. So that's kind of one reason. Not a great reason, but it's kind of one reason. Otherwise, generally, I actually prefer to be shorting SQQ than to be buying TQQ. But I don't have a great reason for you outside of the pricing profile, and it just, I don't know, just where my brain went, to be honest. Let me read the rest of your question. I asked about why you used that specific ETF a few months back, and you talked about the product's drag from the leverage and how you wanted to take advantage of it, but I just wanted to know why the opposite mentality of using the drag in your favor doesn't apply. It does. No, it does. So that reasoning, that rationale should have had me short the SQQ as opposed to buying the TQQ. And that's it. Basically, that's all she wrote. I assume Amazon guidance is going to come out during the call. Yeah, Amazon getting hit here a little bit. And I assume the call starts at 5. But all I'm doing is making assumptions, and you know what they say about assuming. For Mike Reed, when you're looking for signals on extension, do you look for or often see similar signals for something like a QQQ $10 of extension versus an oversold extension for a bounce off the open? It's different time frames. Obviously, market dynamics are different in these types of situations. Just wondering if there are specific things you look at for. Hope that makes sense. Thank you. Yeah, so it's different time frames is really what it comes down to. If anything, I think that the better trade is the daily chart trade. The small time frame extension can be really difficult because the problem with the small time frame extension is that time satisfies it so quickly. So it's like if I'm buying the market because I think it's extended to the downside on the 5-minute, we gap down off the open, then we sell heavy off the open. I have like a very short window for that price or time correction to come in, or otherwise the ADMA on the 5-minute is there very quickly. That window might be 15 minutes, might be 20 minutes. So I need to be right. I need to be right very quickly. When it's more of this like daily chart $10 of extension building in, like I was talking about, I've got like potentially a couple days there to massage the position, get a little heavier as we get more extended, sell some into some bounces that I then rebuy, and all that makes for a much better trade for me from a just a P&L perspective. Here's my chart of my trade executions where you can kind of even see a little bit like just buying and selling and buying and selling, and then getting all out of the position, and because it's not $10 extended anymore, and then starting to rebuild back in. But then in this sideways action, I'm able to sell some stock, and then I'm getting it heavier because we get even more extended, and then I'm able to sell some stock into that move and buy it back on the pullback and get a little heavier again, and then sell all the way up. And then I decided not to continue the trade in the last hour of the day once I liquidated my position, once we weren't $10 extended anymore, specifically because Amazon was coming out after hours and it was a little bit too much of a gamble. But otherwise, I would have bought back in here again in that last hour and kind of rinsed and repeated that entire trade. So I greatly prefer trading that daily chart extension just because it gives me so much time to work the trade, to massage the name, kind of get some P&L back and forth, as opposed to, I think I did it yesterday. I did it yesterday in the TQQ, actually, right in here. This was a 5-minute chart trade, not a daily chart trade. Right in here, right? We gapped down yesterday. We sold off 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes, and then it was like right in this like period here at 9:45, 9:50. I'm looking at the market. I'm looking how it's selling. I'm seeing and even if I'm trading TQQ, I'm trading the chart of the Qs. 1 second, I just got to fill down Amazon. There we go. So I'm looking at this and I'm like, all right, this time of the day here, it's 9:50. We're due for a 5-minute correction. It could extend further. And again, the time situation makes things much more difficult. I'm like, all right, let me see what sort of price and time correction I can get. So if you remember, I sold some on the way up. My best sale in the TQQ, I sold $33.99. But I had more stock looking for the further price correction. My target was the 80 MA on the 5-minute chart. So I had enough stock to continue to sell up to 34.25. But the problem is, all right, I get my bounce here for 7 minutes, and then it decides to rest for the next 10 minutes, and then my entire reward profile on the trade is gone. The trade's done for me. And I stuck with my game plan here, which I'm very happy about with this TQQ. And maybe it actually cost me some money. I would have made more money if I didn't. But I remember talking to you guys before I went on vacation when I wasn't trading as well for a little bit of a period of time there about how I took a trade that was similar to this. I don't remember what the symbol was, but it was off the 5-minute chart extension. I had a game plan basically with a moving price target, which is basically just equilibrium, just the 80 MA off that extension. And it price corrected, a time corrected instead of price corrected. So I didn't make any P&L. But then I changed my game plan. Like, all right, it's 10:15, it's 10:30, whatever it was, I can get a 15-minute correction. So I'm going to change my game plan to look for the 15-minute correction. But I did exactly what I tell everybody not to do, which is I changed my game plan after already being in the trade. And then what happened was the market sold off, or that stock sold off. It broke lows. I think it might have been with XLU. I don't remember. The stock, it sold off even further because this time correction is technically a bear flag. So that 80 MA kept caught up in that other position. I decided to change my game plan. What I did yesterday was I didn't change my game plan. Originally, I'm looking for a move to 34.25. But then 5 minutes later, I'm looking for a move to just 34.14. So my target's coming down. And then 5 minutes after that, I'm looking for a move to 34.09. 5 minutes after that, I'm looking for a move to 34.01. And at that point, the entire reward profile on the trade is gone. So again, if I'm taking the small time frame extension trade, which I like, honestly, Pat's much better at it than I am. He's much more patient than I am. He waits for multiple pieces of confirmation, not just the extension, but probably more extreme extension than I might wait for in conjunction with the RSI. Pat does a much better job than I do on those small time frame extension trades, because I tend to be too early. But again, I'll take those trades and I can make money from those trades. And I made money in TQQ long yesterday, which again, the NASDAQ was awful yesterday. What were we down? 3%? So being able to make money to the long side on the Qs yesterday when the Qs are down 3% is a really good job. But it's a really good job, not because I did anything special, but because I followed the rules. I had a trade based on extension, and I had a game plan for it. I didn't, get annoyed at this time correction and say, oh, I'm going to look for the 15-minute correction or the 30-minute correction, or, I'm just going to look for the full reversal, and then get stuck in this position when it was at lows at the end of the day. Like, I didn't allow myself to do that. I had a game plan and I followed through. But again, the point is this is just a very small window here, as opposed to today's trade, which triggered below QQQ 346. It's like, okay, the 80 MA on the daily chart here is at 356. How long is it going to take for the 80 MA on the daily chart to go from 356 to 346? How many days is it going to take of time and price correction for the 80 MA to actually catch up to 346, which all I'm looking for is the market to be less than $10 of extendeds, and then I'm kind of out of the way on the trade. Yeah, Amazon getting hit here now. So again, it just gives, I have the entire day to massage that TQQ position. And again, looking at the Qs, looking at the daily candle and the Qs, it's almost amazing looking at the daily candle that the TQQ I traded a lot of volume in it, and it paid me really well. And I traded entirely to the long side. And it was just because, when you hit that, ideally it would be a day 3 or day 4, which it wasn't. It was just a day 2. But you get that $10 plus of extension, short-term tacticals in the green. It's not that the market can't go lower. It's just much more difficult for the market to go lower. So I appreciate the question there, Mr. Reed. U.S. Steel is out. Nice beat. Looks like on EPS. Stock's not doing a whole lot. Big beat on EPS. Net sales are a miss. David said EPS beat makes me think upper management's comments about them being valued more than the offer they got for the buyout might not be BS on X. Okay. Yep. Cool. Anybody else have any questions today? Otherwise, I shall wrap things up. What's up, Mike and YouTube? Good seeing you. Glad you're tuning in. All right, so we'll wrap things up. Let's see if this Amazon can hold in, or if it's another disaster like Meta was after hours. Hopefully they say good things on this conference call. We'll see. I'm concerned, but it might make for a good trading session again tomorrow. So have a great night, everybody. I will see you all then. And if you're on YouTube, press the thumbs up button.